Hello and welcome to Vietnam Journal, our daily English news bulletin on net with VTC 10. I'm Ngọc Nhất speaking for Hanoi. Every day we bring you comprehensive and up-to-date information on Vietnam and following a major story on Friday. Vietnam Safe Beach Forum in Hanoi. Annual Festival of Lights to take place in Hanoi. A well-met French ballet artist in harmony with Vietnamese dancers. SAC Minister of Industry and Trade, Martin Cocoret, and a delegation of 40 enterprises have arrived in Vietnam. They attend a Vietnam and Republic Safe Business Forum in Hanoi on Wednesday.
The Czech delegation plans to carry out market research and seek potential partnership opportunities during this trip. Members of the delegation major mainly in piping system design, construction and financial services. At the forum, an agreement was inked between Vietnam National Coal and Mineral Industry Group and Inco Design Companies of Czech Republic.
Petro Vietnam on Wednesday has announced its determination to purchase all of the shares of ConocoPhillips in Vietnam. Currently, the American oil company is holding $1.5 billion assets in this Asian country.
ConocoPhillips now holds stakes in areas with large oil reserves in Vietnam. PetroVietnam is having difficulties distributing its capital to many projects, but the company is said to be able to acquire the assets. The Vietnamese group plans to spend 55 trillion Vietnam dollars, or about $2.75 billion of its capital, plus $200 million from the state budget on the acquisition. 3 other foreign oil firms are also eligible to purchase the assets of ConocoPhillips. They include Korea National Oil Corp and SK Corp, Geopetrol of France and Vietnam Japan Petroleum Corp.
Vietnam National Shipping Lines or Vietnam Lines and Japan's Monikit on Wednesday signed a contract to build the first 2 container terminals of an international port. The port is located in Vietnam's northern city of Hai Phong.
Under the deal, both sides agreed to a joint venture with $30 million of charter capital. Vinalines contributed 51% of the amount. In the first phase, Hai Phong International Port has the total investment capital of more than 25.2 trillion dollars. The investment was divided into 2 components. Component A consists of infrastructure work totaling $260 million from ODA loans, partly provided by the Japan International Cooperation Agency or JICA. Component B with 2 container terminals constructed by the Japanese side at a cost of $165 million. When the components are finished by 2020, the facility will be the largest transit port in northern Vietnam.
And following some business news in brief.
India's biggest private airline, namely Jet Airways, said it had recently signed a memorandum of understanding with Vietnam Airlines. This memorandum is expected to enhance cooperation between the 2 airlines regarding commercial services, techniques and training.
Asian Development Bank or ADB has recently approved loans worth $293 million for Vietnam to develop a metro system in Hanoi. This project is aimed to reduce the traffic congestion in the city. The Metro the Third system, sponsored by ADB, has the total length of 12.5 kilometers, including 3.6 kilometers underground and 8.9 kilometers in the sky. Vietnam Steel Association or VSA said the country's steel exports will increase unprecedentedly to 1.87 million tons in 2011, up nearly 44.5% year-on-year. Steel billet will have the biggest increase among others due to the downturn of domestic demand when steel factories reduce their capacity. Vietnam's steel export revenue reached $1.3 billion in the first 9 months of this year.
The United Nations Industrial Development Organization or UNIDO have recently sponsored a conference on technological development for the next decade in Vietnam. Our reporter had a conversation with Dr. Eric Barn, from Denmark about sustainable development in this Asian country.
Thank you, Professor Eric, for sparing the time to join our talk today. Can you give some analysis on Vietnam's sustainable development situation?
Vietnam is facing a serious situation. Part of it is the consequences of economic growth and population growth, especially in Vietnam. During 40 years or 50 years, with the population growth, there's a very strong challenge to the resources that are available in Vietnam, and I think what has happened in some cases is that Vietnam has come up against, or will come up against, limits to how much resources are available for further growth. The other aspect is that some industrial activities can lead to pollution.
When trying to implement some sustainable development strategy, what obstacle may Vietnam face?
Well, the first obstacle is that economic growth normally will involve further use of energy and resources. It's also important that with economic growth you're changing your lifestyle, and so you gain your economic growth, you gain your increase in living standards with some of these negative effects. And the key problem is to reduce those negative effects, and Vietnam is facing that question just like all the other Asian countries.
What factors should be taken into consideration to develop a good technology strategy?
It's a way of thinking that we need to deal with this problem at the same time as we are having growth. So instead of having a short-term thinking, you have to have a long-term thinking. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't do anything. On the contrary, you should do more and make sure that you don't do the same mistakes as other countries. And central to me is the improvement of technology, using better technology that will pollute less, or even creating your own new technology that can provide energy or provide other resources without polluting.
That wraps up our talk for today. Thank you so much for sparing your time.
Vietnam Journal. It's not just news, it's life in Vietnam.